Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, no matter what time of the day it is where you're at. And I want to welcome you to another episode of the Fireplace Show. And each and every time that we produce this show by CBC Success Group, I like to bring on a subject matter expert from out there in the real world. So today, my guest is my friend Jeremy Biswell from Blues Brothers Chimney Service in Kansas City. Okay. And so you'll know both Jeremy and myself are past presidents of the National Chimney Sweep Guild, and I was also president of the Chimney Safety Institute of America. So that should give you some background that we hopefully know what we're talking about here, and hopefully we'll share some good knowledge. And today's subject matter is all about selecting that right firewood to set your fire. So at this point, we're going to go to our intro music. We'll be back in just a minute, and we'll look forward to sharing some information with you today, okay? So welcome back. So Jeremy, you ready to rock and roll and share some information with consumers today?
I'm still blown away by that intro. I kind of want that intro every time I do something.
Well, maybe one of these days I'll teach you how to do StreamYard as I've been suggesting to you, because Jeremy does what he calls Fireplace Fridays every Friday. And I believe you do it at 10 a.m. Central Time. Is that correct, Jeremy?
Right around that time. I try to be as punctual as possible, but it gets a little busy around here sometimes. And but I do set alarms. So
there you
try
go.
to keep it on.
So if you want to watch Jeremy and his Fireplace Fridays when he talks about the woes of being a chimney sweep, how far behind he is, how much work he's got to do, because that's what he kind of does. He kind of lets loose every Friday and talks about the frustrations of being a chimney sweep in the fall, which is a very busy time of the year. So anyway, here's the whole thing. It's getting cool. Jeremy, is it getting cool enough out there in Kansas City to start having a fire in the evenings?
Let me tell you, it's been a little chillier in the evenings. Yes, during the day, it's kind of hit or miss right now, but it looks like it's going to be consistently in the 40s and mid 40s for the next week. So it's definitely fireplace weather, and this is going to be good information for everybody.
It really is, because the whole thing is a fireplace does a lot. You know, one of the things is we use a fireplace, to give us heat sometimes out. And people may burn wood to actually heat their homes. And we want to help you with some tips today on that fuel. But there's other sides, which are it's just the romance of the fire. There's nothing better than sitting there and enjoying an evening, however you enjoy it, with your loved ones. And the fire's kind of going over there, and it's just kind of a relaxing feeling. In fact, a lot of times, Jeremy, I don't know about you, but actually I'm using my fireplace and I'll doze off there on the couch. It's one of the few places I really relax with myself and Cheryl. What about you and Brandy?
Well, you don't have a bearskin rug in front of your fireplace? I thought that was a normal thing. We lay on the bearskin rug and have wine and take those photos, No, Jeremy, actually, we have a couch right in front of ours. It's far enough away where the couch doesn't get too hot, but it's a good family couch. So it wraps around, and we have some nice throw rugs, and we have a nice big TV over on the other side, so we can have the fireplace going, watching some nice Netflix, and gather with the family right outside the kitchen area. So it's really nice. Yeah.
Right. And we've got a couple fireplaces here, and the one in our family room, it's actually underneath the television. So we have the television mounted up above it. So actually we're watching the TV, and underneath it, the fire's going. And our two dogs, Bub and Abby, they're sitting there. They're enjoying the heat. They just love to kind of lay out there and take it easy in the evening. It's kind of like we get it. But the big thing is we want people to use their fireplaces safely and efficiently. Would you agree that's part of your mission, Jeremy?
That's one of the reasons we're here, for everything. Safety.
Right. And one of the things I've done, I've actually had the honor to actually do training with a lot of Jeremy's people there. And that's a big factor at Blues Brothers, Jeremy, which, where you guys actually train your technicians to offer the best service to the people in Kansas City. Have I got you pegged pretty right, brother?
You do. We try to always stay on top. We love our competition. We love all the other chimney sweeps in the Kansas City area. We want everybody to succeed. But of course, we employ the best, and we do things that definitely benefits the city and also ourselves.
Right. Now, as myself, Jeremy, as you know, I'm not an active chimney sweep. I do not run a chimney sweep business any longer, a hard shop. My job is I coach, I train, I consult. And the reason that I do this show is not to drive my own business. The reason I do this show is to share with consumers across America and in other countries how to use their fireplaces safely and how to get through the problems. So as we go through this, this is why CBC Success Group, we sponsor the Fireplace Show and we share the tips and tactics that will help people go where they want to go. So today's subject matter, and so you'll know, I called Jeremy about 5 minutes ago, said, Jeremy, I'm getting ready to go live. You want to go around and talk about firewood today? And he was all in, even though Monday is probably the busiest day of the week out there. So what we want to share with you today is how to select the right firewood. And I'm going to share some ideas with you about how to properly burn your wood, how to make it give you the best performance that goes on. So I'm going to share some photos on here with you right now, and Jeremy and I will still be here, and we're going to kind of talk about these as we go into this. So we're going to be sharing the photos here. Let me get my photos up, Jeremy, and we'll have something to start talking about. So right now, Jeremy, you're seeing that on the left, I've got a picture of a wood pile there. It could be out in somebody's yard. And on the left side of that photo, you'll see that the wood is brown. It's kind of weathered. And on the right-hand side, when you look, the wood is much cleaner. It hasn't discolored from being out in the weather. Now, one thing as you look at that wood pile that jumps out at me, Jeremy, is that wood is left uncovered. If the wood's left uncovered like that, what's going to happen to that firewood?
It's going to get wet. It's going to regain moisture. It's going to rot faster. Oh boy, there's all sorts of good stuff. Water, I always say water's the strongest stuff on earth, and it will turn anything to mush over time, even concrete.
Right. So what you want to do is wherever you store your firewood, you need to keep it. As you can see, that firewood is laying on the ground, which is going to suck the moisture out of the ground, and it's going to cause that firewood to rot. You need this firewood where the air can flow through it. And actually, there's different ways to stack your firewood, but you want your firewood to actually have air circulation around it, because what we're looking for is we want a seasoned wood. And what we're looking for is wood that has a moisture content between 15 and 20%. If we go through the studies that have been done, such as Dr. Jay Shelton in his book, Wood Heat Safety, and if we look at the teachings of both the National Fireplace Institute, and also the Chimney Safety Institute of America, you're going to find they recommend a wood that has a moisture content ranging from 15, and they say 25, but I go with 20%. So anything else about that photo on the left that jumps out at you, Jeremy?
Let's see here. I don't know what that is on sitting on top of it, but yeah, definitely you kind of hit it on the head. It's best to stack that wood, make sure it's got some air flow through it up off the ground. And then we always tell people to cover it with a tarp during the colder part of the season, just to keep all the snow and moisture and everything else off of it.
Right. Well, when you asked about that thing on top, Jeremy, I pulled this photo off the internet a while ago, and I believe that is some type of a cover made out of metal on the left. It's kind of blocking the rain from falling onto it. But again, what we're looking for here is we want to keep our wood elevated off the ground. It doesn't suck the moisture in. This is also going to keep it where you're not going to have termites build up in this bed, those type of things. And another thing, look at the wood. It's been split. Now, Jeremy, is split wood the best thing? Are we going to use round wood if it's a good sized log like the one on the right?
No, so you want to split. So you actually brought up a couple of good points. The one about the bugs and the bugs. There's like around here you could find like black widow spiders and all sorts of snakes and everything else by the wood pile. So it's not a bad idea to keep that wood pile away from the house so you don't attract bugs and termites and everything else. But when you talk about the size of the wood, that's another great point. So I always tell our customers, if anything over 6 inches in diameter, you want to split. And honestly, the true nature is you want to split all as much wood as you can, because it just burns better. It doesn't sit there and smolder as much, and you get a more brisk, complete burn out of those logs.
Right. And split wood is going to combust much more evenly. Now, as we look at that wood pile, yeah, we've got some small limbs on top, but that would not be what we would want to start the fire with. We're going to be much better if we start the fire using our split wood and using our kindling. And we're going to share some ideas with you in a minute. Now, another thing to do is they say if you hit two pieces of wood together, you'll actually get a more of a dull thud from the wood to tell you that it is seasoned out. Would you agree with that statement, Jeremy?
Yes, true.
Right.
That's old school.
That's old school, right. And we're going to show you the new school way here in a minute also. So if you look to the right, you can see that we have wood that you can see where it has cracks in it. Now, those cracks are good because that's what happens when the wood dries out and seasons. So as you look at the wood, the splits in it, that's a good thing. That's telling us this wood has been seasoned out, and seasoned out means that the moisture has left the wood. Again, we're looking for a fuel wood that's going to be down at a 15 to 20% ratio. So would you agree with what I'm saying now, Jeremy, or would you add anything in looking at those two photos?
Nope, you're hitting it on the head so far. Yeah, it definitely gets that cracking as it's drying up, and then you can also tell that it's about time to split. And I do have some tips when you're ready to talk about splitting that I always give to customers too. So
why don't you go ahead and do that?
So one big thing about owning a wood burning appliance is all the preparation and finding of the fuel. If you're going to buy it split and everything, I always tell people the best kind of wood is free wood, but of course you're going to get, and what I mean by free wood is wood that doesn't cost you anything. A lot of people are looking to get rid of, their wood piles, or they chop down a tree or whatever. It depends on how much effort you want to put into it. If you're the type that doesn't mind some exercise, I know a lot of professional athletes that actually incorporate the motion of splitting wood. And I was actually watching a boxing documentary, and I'm trying to remember what boxer it was, but he was actually on a kind of a ranch during his training camp, and he was actually splitting wood because it's a great workout. But anyways, so it depends on how much effort and everything you want to put in. The best way to split wood is once it's dried up and it's starting to crack like that and everything, is to go to your local rental place, and instead of buying a wood splitter that runs off gasoline or electricity, go and rent one for the weekend. So have all your wood all ready to go that you've collected over the last year or whatever, and then go rent it. And a lot of rental places are closed on Sundays. So if you rent it on Saturday, a lot of places will give you Sunday at no charge, and then you return the splitter on Monday. So then you don't have the expense and cost of maintaining and upkeeping like a $15,000 or $2,000 wood splitter, a good one that moves fast. And then, of course, you want to make sure you're wearing safety gear and gloves. I'd even have some earplugs in, maybe even something for your head, because as you're splitting that wood, it can pop and blow little shards and everything everywhere. So you want to make sure you're being safe doing it as well. The alternative is you buy it all split and prepped and ready to go. Hopefully it's seasoned properly, which Jerry's going to get into how to tell the moisture content besides just the clanging thing here in probably just a bit. So.
Yeah. And, as you was talking, Jeremy, your wife, Randy, goes to the gym every morning, I believe. Doesn't she get up like 4 a.m. and head down to the gym every morning?
She does. She does it every morning except for Saturday and Sunday. And she still gets up early on Saturday and Sunday. We take the dogs to the dog park on Saturday. And I believe she goes for a walk with a friend on Sunday.
Well, I got a good idea for you. I think you need to buy Brandy a wood pile.
We have one. We have a wood pile.
Okay. That's what I mean.
I tell her all the time. I said, hey, you oughta bring your gym crew if they ever have a canceled gym day down to the shop or back to the house. I've got all sorts of neat activities that people can do. And the funniest thing is people pay money to do things like that. Heck, it's just another chore list for guys like me. So,
well, maybe with that entrepreneurial spirit you got, maybe that's what you need to do. Turn your backyard into a big wood lot, and you can sell memberships to come there and split wood like they would sell at the gym. But anyway,
we'll call it lumberjack fit instead of
it.
CrossFit. It'll be lumberjack fit.
Okay, so what we've done, we've told you a couple of the older ways to measure and judge that wood, because what we're looking for a wood at 15 to 20% moisture. But Jeremy, can you see what I'm holding in my hand right now?
Is that a taser?
That is a wood moisture meter. And what this has, it has two little pinpoints. Can you see the pinpoints coming out the top there, Jeremy?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is, this is about a $20 to $30 mechanical device that you can order from Amazon and from a lot of different suppliers. Just go on the internet and click in moisture meter for wood. And this is something, and to show you how it works, Jeremy, this is just a piece of wood. I went out in the yard a while ago and picked it up. And what we're going to do is measure it. So I turned it on. And what it is, Jeremy, I don't know if you can see that, but that wood is 30.2% moisture. And I see it right there. It's telling me what the temperature is, but that piece of wood in my hand is 30.2 to 30.3% moisture content. Now, this is not, even though that's a little chunk of wood, and if you look at it, that would be something perfect to use for kindling, don't you think?
Yeah, where'd you pick that piece of wood up at?
I just picked it up laying out in the backyard. I needed a piece of wood just to show on here that I could spring in here at my studio and put in front of my desk and do this. So anyway, just walked out there and picked it up. But that's what this is called, a moisture meter. So a moisture meter is something that would be a great tool for anyone who's burning wood, because the whole thing is, if you're trying to burn wet wood, you're going to have a lot of problems. Number one, it's going to be smoky. Number two, you're going to use a lot of the energy that's in that wood simply to dry that wood out. So we want to make sure to get the most efficiency out of our wood burning appliances, especially if we're burning a wood stove, which is going to make more creosote in the chimney system than you're going to have with a fireplace, to make sure that your moisture content is right. You agree with what I'm saying at this point?
Absolutely. Yeah, you said it's a good option. I'd say it's almost a necessity to have a good moisture meter.
Yeah. So here's the thing. If you're listening to us and you've got a wood burning friend and it's going to be Christmas time coming up, that could make a great little stocking stuffer. It could make a really nice gift to give somebody. And like I said, it runs anywhere. I think this one in my hand, I paid about $27 for it. And it comes with the batteries, comes with the little needles, and you can just turn it off, turn it on, and then you can check your moisture from there. So this is all about the firewood. Now, Jeremy, you said the key thing a while ago, which is, the best wood is free wood. We would all agree on that. But a lot of people have this connotation that we can only use seasoned oak and we shouldn't use softwoods like pine and cedar and those kind of things. Now, you're going to get more energy out of a hardwood because a pound of wood is a pound of wood. And the BTUs of a pound of wood, no matter what kind it in, are very similar. So why do we want to use a hardwood? Why do people say use a hardwood, Jeremy?
It seems they're more dense, and so it puts out more BTUs. It burns longer. It's just a better way to go. The softwood is a great wood to get softwoods are a great way to get the fire started and get a good brisk fire, or maybe even freshen up the fire a bit. But it does tend to burn pretty quick. I'll never forget the first time I actually learned that. We cut down an old pine tree, and I spent a bunch of time splitting it up. And I think we burnt through that entire tree in a week in my wood stove because it just went so fast. But I'll tell you what, it burned nice and hot, and it burnt complete. We had nothing but a little bit of fly ash left when we burnt that stuff. So you might mix it in a little bit with the other hardwood if you have an abundance of it, but it's definitely a good wood to burn.
Okay, so let's eradicate another old wives' tale, if we will. And I hope I don't insult anybody when we say old wives' tale. We'll even call it an old timer's tale, because they'll tell you never burn pine because you're going to get more creosote, which is actually inaccurate, because the creosote buildup is contingent upon the moisture content in the wood, and it's also contingent upon the temperature that the wood burns at. So someone could have really nice oak or hickory hardwoods, but if the moisture content is too high or we're smoldering the fire, that's going to give us a lot more creosote than what we're going to get from burning pine or cedar. What's your thoughts on that? Would you agree or disagree?
I do agree with everything on that. Yeah, there's a lot of what you called it. Did you call it old wives' tales or
I called it tales? I called it an old wives' tale, but I know today I have to be sensitive to the thought, so I retracted the old wives part and I put down as an old timer's tale. Okay,
old timers. There we are.
There you go. Now, what we're looking at now, when I was a young child, I was in the Boy Scouts and I was taught how to build a fire many, many years ago. But through training and through some of the research that have been done, there's actually been newer ways to build a fire. So I'd like for you to listen up real close, because we're going to give you some background into how to put the wood in the fireplace. Now, what you're seeing there is two different fireplaces with grates in them. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but the reason we have a grate is so air can get underneath that wood. And actually, a grate is not really required to have proper burn. And I tell people a lot of times, have you ever seen a bonfire with a grate under the bonfire? No, it hasn't. So a lot of times, a grate is something that when we have poor draft in the fireplace, we may want to use. Now, a grate also has retainer bars at the front that keeps the wood from falling out of the fireplace. So, Jeremy, what's your thoughts on grates? Because, we got a lot of new fireplaces that are coming out now as retrofits, and we don't use grates in those fireplaces. We burn it directly on the floor. So what's your thought processes on grates?
On an old, inefficient fireplace, your standard fireplace, the reason you said you have new retrofits is because the new retrofits are going to burn a lot more efficient. It's also going to have a smaller footprint for that firebox. So it's radiating more heat out and using yet less fuel because it's a more efficient fireplace. So with the older standard open big fireplaces, those grates are almost a necessity to you've got so much air movement through there. You want to keep all that going really well. The grates, the big thing about a grate is that it shouldn't be more, we always tell people, more than 2/3 the depth of the firebox, because if you get one that's almost like sticking out of the front of the firebox, we'll get complaints from people saying that their fireplace smokes occasionally. Well, it's because you're burning the wood too far close to the front, and there's a lintel bar that kind of will help it direct that smoke either out the front or up the flue. So you want to keep that pushed back a bit in there. But yeah, grates have their place in larger, standard, more inefficient, haven't been tested, just your basic fireplaces. We also see that people feel that a grate is needed in like every wood burning appliance, like a wood stove. You don't want to put a grate in a wood stove. It can actually overfire that wood stove. The wood stove is almost made like a kiln or a furnace where you feed that in there. Kind of like an old locomotive, and they're throwing the coal in there. You're placing that wood right into that kiln with that special fire brick, and it's going to radiate that heat back and forward and cause that wood to just burn more complete. Not going to get a lot of that with the grate. The grate's basically, like you said, just to get that air movement up under that fire so that wood will burn a little bit better and get that stuff to vent up and out of the house.
Right. So, anyways, you look at that, these two fires, as you can see, they're built a little bit differently. But what we're doing here, we're using a combination of split wood, not round wood, and then we're using kindling. But as you look at the fire on the right, Jeremy, you see, they've got newspaper and the kindling is on the bottom where we start the kindling burning and it comes up and ignites the fire, the logs. But on the left-hand side, it's exactly reversed. We have the large wood on the bottom, and then we have a layer of wood that's a little bit smaller, and then we put the kindling up on top. And we light the kindling on top of the wood bed. Now, what's your thoughts as you look at these two methods of setting the wood into the fireplace? What's your thought process?
So the one on the left, I think a lot of people would be confused by. The one on the right looks like about every fireplace we run into, and about every setup that I see whenever I go to Christmas parties or Thanksgivings this time of year. And it's not a horrible setup. Usually, I even see more logs on it, and all of it's all bunched up and everything. The one on the left, you're probably going to tell us who actually came up with that originally. But it's more of it was a well thought through, more engineered way. And it actually starts, the problem with the one on the right is that you're lighting everything and it's going to get very smoky, and that fire is trying to fight up through that and catch all that stuff on fire. The one on the left, which is called the top down burn, where you have the fire on the top and all the fuel under it, it starts off very hot. So you don't have a lot of dark smoke coming out the top. You also get a good draft going very quickly, not very smoky, very hot right off the bat. And then what it does is it burns, and as it burns, all of that stuff drops down to the next layer and catches that next layer on fire. And then you just have a really good, long burning, vibrant fire that's a little bit more on the more efficient side, has less smoke, etc.
Right. You know, when you say, I'm not sure, Jeremy, who was actually the originator of the top down burn. The guy I learned this from was, I call him the present day Count Rumford, who was a researcher back in the 17th century of fireplaces. But that would be our friend Chris Pryor. And Chris started teaching this method in the industry some years ago, and it's really caught on really good for a lot of people. So if you're starting a fire, try a top-down burn. It's going to give you a much cleaner burn. It's going to create less smoke, less emissions going up into the atmosphere. Now, Jeremy, something else about that picture to the right. That fireplace don't look too good to me. What's your thought process is looking at that fireplace? Do you see a little issue there on that rear wall?
Yeah, it looks like it needs a little bit of repair, maybe even a rebuild on that back wall. It looks like some of the brick might be a little dilapidated, might have a little cracking in it, might be falling apart a bit. So it's probably seen a lot of fires over its time. Also, when you're burning a fire, you don't want to toss the logs. That rear wall not only gets a lot of heat and a lot of reflective heat from the heat on the surface, but also it takes a lot of beating if people, kind of get afraid and toss that log in there and it hits that back wall so many times. So maybe some sort of protector, or maybe building that firebox a little bit sturdier for the next go around on it. But it definitely needs some repair work, some attention.
Well, looky there. My wife is watching our show right now. She said good information. So, hey, we appreciate that, Cheryl.
That way. There she is. There
she is. Yeah, she's over that way. So anyway, but going from there, this is one of the things we also like to do is, if there's things that you can spot as a consumer in your fireplace. Because when I looked at that, Jeremy hit a lot of key points, but he actually listed one that he didn't hit. That's an indication that you probably got a water entry issue. Because when the water gets into the rear wall of the fireplace, what it's going to do, it's going to weaken that mortar. And if we have moisture getting into it, what happens there is that moisture heats up. It turns into steam. And what you'll see from that point is you'll see the face of the brick itself starting to pop off, which was exactly what you looked at there. So again, the whole purpose today was to share with you guys information. Now, we talked about newer fireplaces. If you go on to our website, cbcsuccessgroup.com, we actually have a whole library full of our shows there on the Fireplace Show. So if you go to cbcsuccessgroup.com and click on podcast, you can actually pull up our past episodes. We talked about Chris Pryor, and Chris actually developed with John Meredith what we call a Pryor fireplace, which is a pretty radical 21st century design. So is it worth people to look into this kind of stuff, Jeremy?
Absolutely, absolutely. If you're going to be burning wood in your house, why not do it the best, safest way possible and do a little bit of research? It's also interesting, yeah, I mean, anything in life, all education's good education. So
that's it. Now, also, there's something else, Jeremy, that happens when you burn wood. And the byproduct of burning wood is ashes. Would you agree that that's going to happen when you burn wood?
Yep.
Now, here's something I want to share. This is a safety tip with you, please. Now, I've done a past show on that, but Jeremy, I'm going to switch over to a video just a second, and we're going to play a video. Now, I'm going to alert you before we go there. This is a very alarming video. This video comes from a home in Stamford, Connecticut, where someone improperly stored the ashes in their home. And Jeremy, there were some fatalities. I'm not showing this as a scare or anything else. Hopefully, if you're watching this, and you'll become aware, because what happened on this was, Jeremy, believe it or not, they actually put the ashes in a cardboard box and stored them in the laundry room. So I'm going to that video right now.
Crews tore down a Connecticut home where 3 children and their grandparents died in a fire Christmas morning. Cell phone video shows how flames quickly spread through the house just before 5 a.m.
First units on the scene attempted rescues within the structure that were pushed back by intense flame and heat.
The fire gutted the Victorian-style home that sits along the Long Island Sound. A well-known advertising executive, Madonna Badger, owns the house and escaped, along with a male contractor who was helping with the renovation. But Badger's 3 daughters, a 10-year-old and twin 7-year-olds, and her parents could not get out. Her father died in the fire hours after spending Christmas Eve working as Santa Claus at Saks Fifth Avenue in New York City.
It's a tragedy. It's tragic and it's heartbreaking.
It's just so terribly sad. You would hope that everybody would have gotten out at least, and so they'd be alive to enjoy another Christmas.
Monday, neighbors dropped off flowers for the victims while investigators worked to figure out what sparked the deadly fire. Manuel Gallegos, CBS News.
So, Jeremy, what does that say to you?
Well, I mean, ashes will retain their heat for a long time, and proper disposal is extremely key. We had a similar situation where a homeowner vacuumed the ashes out of their wood stove. I think it was 4 or 5 days after they had their last fire, and sucked them up into the vacuum cleaner, stored the vacuum cleaner in a closet, went to dinner, came back, house had burned down. Luckily, nobody was in the house.
Well, Jeremy, this is how we learn. Let me ask you a question. Would you consider that I know chimneys and fireplaces?
Oh, yeah. For you.
Okay. So,
you've kind of spent your whole life on them.
Thank you. But let's go back to an earlier time in my own life. And this was before I ever entered this industry. And I had a fireplace. And believe it or not, I took the ashes out, but I wanted to get it really clean. So I was married to my first wife at that point, and I went and got, and I can remember this day, she had a Singer vacuum cleaner. So I went down and I wanted to clean all the ashes out. So I was down just a little bit left, and I sucked up the rest of those ashes in that Singer vacuum cleaner. And at that point, I put it back into the closet and put it up thinking, okay. And I went to Sears Roebuck. And that was before we had cell phones, okay? That was before we had bag phones. And I was at Sears, and I got this thing come over. Is Jerry Eisenhower in the building? We need him to come to the office. And my wife was calling Sears to find me because the vacuum cleaner had caught on fire in our master closet. Now, luckily, we were home, but that's something that I did completely uneducated. And that's the reason I do this show, Jeremy. I do that show because I know there's other people. And yeah, a lot of consumers may think that, chimneys and fireplaces, we look at it, we see the Facebook forums, we see consumers, and they've really got some really out there ideas sometimes. That's why I do this show, Jeremy, because if we can stop and prevent what you just saw in Stamford, Connecticut, that's what makes it worthwhile for us. So, Jeremy, anything you want to add on this for fireplaces or fireplace safety as people are driving home right now and settling in their easy chairs and enjoying their fireplaces tonight?
No, it's ironic that you had a similar story to the one my customer had. And I just sit here and think, boy, it would have been nice. Maybe it could have been avoided if he heard your story on a platform like this years ago when that happened. But we didn't have platforms like this. So it's amazing the wealth of information that's being shared, especially with people, from people that have been in the industry for such a long time like yourself, because that's really something that the world needs to keep giving. And people always wonder how you can give back to the world. And the best thing you can do is everybody's an expert in something, and doing things like that so people can watch things like this and hopefully avoid some of those hardships that other people have experienced over time.
Right. So if you're listening to this, I would ask you to consider, would you share this on your own social media pages? Would you share this and get this idea out? Because Jeremy, I just envision that someday, somewhere, someone is going to see this show, and we're not going to hear about their kids on a news story one day. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, especially this time of year. So many people have family over and friends over for the holidays, and having a fire in the fireplace is kind of part of that. And even if it's a gas fire, it still needs to hold the same respect as a wood burning fire. But what I always tell customers, what happens this time of year is people get up, let's say Thanksgiving is coming up, Thanksgiving or even Christmas morning, and they have a bunch of people coming over and they're rushing around trying to get everything done. And they're like, hey, we need to light the fireplace. And they rush and try to get the fireplace lit really quick. And they forget to open the damper. They forget to, scoop those ashes and put them in a metal container with a tight fitting lid and get it at least 10 foot away from the home. They forget to make sure that they're using good seasoned wood and that they stored it properly. So they have a good fuel to use on that Thanksgiving morning or Christmas morning. Things of that nature. So this is all great, pertinent information, and it's going to go over well. And I hope many, many people see this.
Okay, so let's dispel a couple rumors here while we're on here today. A lot of people, Jeremy, would you see that people think that if they have a fireplace or chimney issue, it can be fixed by putting gas logs in? Do you see that much in your business out there, that people think that you tell them there's a problem in their chimney and then they're going to go get a set of gas logs, and they may even go to uneducated people that sell the product or off the internet, and they think they've taken care of their problem by putting a gas log in the fireplace? What's your what's your professional opinion if someone told you that? Hey, you tell them there's a problem and they tell you, that's okay, I got it covered. I went down to the local gas company. This guy's going to put some gas logs in. Do you ever see this? And what's your thought process to the consumer that may have that thought?
Yeah, we see it daily. I hear it from people just when I meet someone new and they say, well, what do you do for a living? I say, well, I own a chimney sweep business and this is what we do and things like that. And they go, well, I guess I'll never be using your service. And I go, oh, why? And they said, well, because I've got those fake logs, or I've got that fake fireplace or whatever. And I go, hey, that thing's as real as it gets. And we service a lot of gas fireplaces. And unfortunately, a lot of them, the service comes from either they stopped working or someone had a bad experience. They don't realize that, hey, just like your furnace and your water heater and everything else in your home, anything mechanical needs to be inspected and serviced. And I always tell people, if they go, well, I'll just do this or I'll put these in it, and I go, instead of I found that it really doesn't really go over with people when you tell them they can't do something. You can't do that, or you can't do it. We tell them, you shouldn't do that. What you should do is you should look at whatever appliance you're thinking about buying and consult with us. That's what we're here for. And let's look in the owner's manual. Let's look at the manufacturer. Let's look at the standards that appliance is intended for, and make sure that you're going to have a good, safe installation and a good functioning appliance after that's installed properly. Because boy, when you get into gas, there's a whole nother world of things, and it starts with gas. Gas can be dangerous when not used properly.
Well, Jeremy, we've got a question from Sarah that's watching us right now. And she said, can you cover unvented gas items? Yeah, we'll be glad to. So let's put forth some things on here. Yes, there is such a thing as called a vent-free or unvented gas log. And yes, they are legal in certain parts of the country. Now, here's the key things with a vent-free gas product. There is a usage limit. The appliance should not be operated over 2 to 4 hours in a 24-hour period. Number two, they should never be operated when you go to bed at night or you leave the house. It is not a heating system. Number three, if you're going to use a vent-free gas product, you should always ventilate the room that's in by opening a window and allowing fresh air in. A lot of people think that these appliances don't create carbon monoxide, but they can create a tremendous amount of carbon monoxide, especially if the logs are properly set or other things are going on here. You can also have some odor issues from vent-free. When you're burning the vent-free appliances, vent-free gas logs, you may smell something that smells like rotten eggs. It's very similar to a gas leak because gas has actually a chemical added to it to alert you to a gas leak. It is ethyl mercaptan, and what that does is it is created so it smells it. But the problem is if you have a bad air quality in your home and air is going into there, 90% of what's burning in a vent-free gas log is the combustion air mixing with the gas. So what you can have here is some tremendous odor issues, but what it's coming from the air that's being consumed. Another thing about a vent-free gas product, you should never see soot on the logs with a vent-free. Now with a vented, you're going to see soot on there. Vented requires the same chimney as wood burning. It has to draft. So vented gas logs are made to create soot. They are made to create smoke, but a vent-free log is got in a vent-free mode. Vent-free gas products have what's called an ODS valve on them, which is an oxygen depletion sensor. And what this is doing is monitoring the oxygen level. So if the oxygen level in the room drops to 18% oxygen, the unit is going to shut down to the way the pilot burns. And so you'll know what 18% oxygen content is. That's what's available at 4,000 feet above sea level. Okay. Now, a vent-free gas product cannot produce and pass listing if it's more than 40,000 BTU gas input. It also cannot create more than 5 ppm of carbon per hour. Now, here's the problem. As a vent-free log is burning, what it's going to do is the burner will get clogged. So whenever you're using the logs after a period of time, then it produces higher levels beyond that 5 ppm of carbon per hour. So that's kind of some basis for vent-free, Jeremy. Anything you would add to all that?
That was a mouthful, but here's the thing. There's still more to go over on that. It's amazing the amount. We're in the venting profession. We're in the venting profession. And vent-free appliances, I always tell people, vent-free appliances have their place. But there is a lot of things that come along with them, so yeah, I think you covered a huge majority of it, and people should be scratching their head going, my gosh, that's a lot, but my big thing is always read the instruction manual. They're not a solution for a broken chimney. And the other fun thing we have around here in Kansas City is we have fireplace enclosures that were basically made so they look like a fireplace, but they used to have they don't have a chimney off of them, or they might have an itty bitty chimney just to bleed off some smells, but they had a little radiant gas heater, a little ceramic radiant gas heater that was a vent-free appliance back in the day. But I imagine those probably put off more carbon monoxide because we had very leaky homes. So that's why when you get into a lot of the smells with all the chemicals and the building materials, and it gets drawn back through, or Glade plugins or some of these other smelly things everybody puts in their home because they don't realize their home needs to ventilate a little bit more. And you kind of got into, you know, you need to have a certain size room for everything to dissipate because they do create carbon monoxide. It's just a lower level that is acceptable, but it's also dissipating inside that room. So you don't want a room that's small. You don't want one that you're spending a lot of sleeping time in. You don't want to have a bunch of doors that you shut and things like that. But we could do an entire tips and tactics on vent-free gas logs. More than happy to talk about it even more, or do another one of these with you. But boy, you covered a lot on that, and there's more to come on them.
Well, as you know, Jeremy, I've written a lot of training courses in my life. So that was kind of, went into my gas and basics mode right there. Sarah asked if I could cover it. And, you know, that's the thing. When you ask me a question and you want me to cover it, it's going to get covered pretty completely as best as I can. And I hope I didn't lose anybody on that. But here's the whole thing. If you've got questions about your fireplace, if you've got questions about gas logs, let us know, because what I do is I try to find people like Jeremy to do this show with me. And Jeremy, you've done this before. We'll get you back again sometime and do it. But I appreciate you being here today, man. I really, really appreciate it. And Sarah said, I shared this with my customers. Sarah, that's exactly why we do this. Like I said, if everybody in this industry would share this show on their own social media, I just can envision maybe we can save that child that we talked about earlier. Maybe we can save a house, because it's not a good feeling to watch somebody lose their home or lose something more dear, such as our kids, our grandkids. I can only imagine. Jeremy, you're a parent. I'm a parent. I'm a grandfather. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know how I would face that as a father if that happened to me. I really don't know how I would deal with that. I don't know how I would do it. What about you?
You know, I try not to think of things like that because, yeah, it would be devastating. I don't even want to talk about it, Jerry.
I understand, and that's
you're gonna stick with the good juju, not the bad juju.
And that's it, Jeremy. As a dear friend, I hope we never have to. Okay, I really, really do. So anyway, that's going to end this episode of the Fireplace Show. Again, it's brought to you by the CV Success Group. Jeremy, let's tell people before we kick out of here, if they're in the Kansas City market, how did they get in touch with Blues Brothers out there at Kansas City?
Yeah, so we're Flues Brothers in Kansas City here. Phone number is 913-236-7141. That was 913-236-7141. Or you can visit us online at www.kc, like Kansas City, KC SWEEP.com. Also follow us on social media. Facebook seems to be the most popular with people. Or you can just slam in a Google search for Chimney Sweep Kansas City. We pop right up on the local. No problem.
Yeah. This time of year, Jeremy, do they need a little bit of patience when they call you right now?
Yeah, there's a lot of rush to the finish line this time of year. Next week is we got Thanksgiving coming up next week, so we get a lot of urgent phone calls, and then it's the race to Christmas, and then usually the first quarter of the year it's a lot of snow, a lot of coldness, so we get a lot of fireplace problems. Hey, I'm trying to use this rather than, hey, I've got a bunch of people coming over. Now I'm just trying to use my fireplace and I'm having this issue or that issue, or, hey, I definitely need to get this thing cleaned or what have you. So it's kind of the circle of life in this industry, and same stuff I've been seeing and dealing with for, 22 years, I think now.
So if you're a consumer, this is what I would highly recommend to you. Don't wait till the fall, because every year we see this. Because the problem is, Jeremy, we cannot gear a company up to handle this demand. We just cannot be done. And what you need to do is call people like Jeremy and get someone that's certified to do the job to get in there. we recommend in chimneys that you look for several things. Number one, Jeremy, would you agree that they need to hire a company that's a member of the National Chimney Sweep Guild like I do?
Yes, a member of the National Chimney Sweep Guild. You can check that off your list.
Correct. The other thing that I would check is the technician coming to your home certified? And there's two certification bodies in this country. I'm not showing favoritism to one or the other. The one is called the CSI certification that comes from the Chimney Safety Institute of America. You can look them up at csi.org. Now, the other is the CCP certification. And the CCP is owned and done by the National Chimney Sweep Guild. Now, the CCP certification is actually going through an upgrade right at this point. But Jeremy, I think your people, a lot of yours are certified. Aren't they dual certified by both companies?
Yeah, the majority of ours are. So we have levels of progression in our company, and both those certifications are part of it. There's also another certification that's put out by the NFI, the National Fireplace Institute. It's more of an installer certification, but since we install hearth appliances, we go through those too. So they're kind of advanced certifications, but they're all excellent. All education is good education.
That really is. The other thing to do is check the Google reviews. A lot of people wonder and they say, can I call this company in? So a lot of times this is a good resource. Google reviews is a really great place that you can check because unhappy customers, they'll post there, won't they, Jeremy? Jeremy, how many Google reviews has Flues Brothers got at this point?
A lot. I'd have to look. Maybe 600 plus, something like that. And we'd have a lot more if, it's hard to get really, it's hard to get a lot of happy people to write a review when they're happy. It's a lot easier if someone's not happy. But of course, we answer every one of the, I've got a friend, he calls them unhappy campers. It's hard to make every single person happy, but darn it, we are going to try. And the nice thing is Google also has a rating. It's like up to a five star. And, it's always a little skeptical when someone has a perfect 5.0 rating. You want somebody that's got, right down there, it says 664 Google reviews from my company watching down there, whoever is watching and posting. So, but what I like to do is when I tell people when I'm, a lot of people forget I'm a homeowner too. All your service technicians come into your home are homeowners and they have families and things like that. And they have to get service people to their homes as well. So when I'm looking, not only do I ask a friend or ask for references, but it seems like it used to just be, hey, so-and-so told me to call you, so I'm calling you. Now people go online after they get some names. They do a little bit of research. They look at a website. They look at their reviews, they'll look at the good, the bad, and the ugly reviews, and they'll see, did that company, even if they had some bad reviews, like what consistency am I seeing here? There's a big heating and cooling company in town. And I talked to the owner one time and I said, hey, he said, well, what'd you think of the place? He kind of gave me a tour and I said, well, everything looks great. I said, but I can tell you what most of your customers are having problems with you with. And he goes, well, what? And I said, well, it's about arrival times. And he goes, well, how do you know that? That showed nothing here at our shop. And I said, because you look at the Google reviews and you look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I can tell you where you shine and I can tell you where you need to work on a little bit. And all of us are constantly working to get ourselves better and better and better. So we can always provide 5-star service to everybody.
Okay, Jeremy. Well, we're going to call this to an end. I appreciate you being here. I have a really big feeling that your wife might just be ready to go home today. Okay.
It is 4:44 p.m. here, and we close at 4:30. So yes,
I got this little bug that tells me, "Wrap it up, Jerry. I want to go home." We rode together.
He knows we'll talk forever, and the next thing we know, this thing's a 3-hour movie.
That's it. Okay, brother. Appreciate you joining us today. Remember, if you're listening, you're burning wood, get you a moisture meter, get it, and learn about the top-down burn fire. It's going to give you a lot better fire. And with that, we appreciate it. Jeremy, go take Brandy home. Talk to you later.
You got it. I'm going to go home and